She stood on the cold metal floor, chains around her thin blue ankles. Her golden eyes looked at the crowd of aliens in front of her. They were shouting, waving credits, trying to buy her like a broken toy. Her heart was beating fast, but she kept her head up. She told herself, I will not break. I will not cry. Around her, other cages held small aliens, some crying, some already dead inside. The air smelled like oil and fear. The auction master, a fat creature with 6 eyes, shouted numbers in a loud voice. Look at this one. He yelled, pulling her forward. Strong spirit, rare color. Who will start the bidding? A tall lizard-like alien hissed, offering a high price. Another alien with long metal arms laughed, offering more. Each bid made the girl's fear grow, but she clenched her fists. She would never be anyone's pet. She would never call anyone master. Suddenly, the crowd grew quiet. A new figure walked in, wearing a dark jacket and boots that made no sound. He was human. She had never seen a human this close before. His eyes were calm, but they looked sharp, like they could see inside her. He looked at her for a moment, and she looked back, trying not to show fear. The auction master smiled. Ah, human, you want a pet slave, yes? She will look nice sitting at your feet. The human did not smile. He simply said, how much? The auction master gave a high number. The human nodded and threw a small credit chip. The chip glowed, showing the payment was complete. The other aliens started to protest, but the auction master shut them down. Money was more important then. Their anger, the human stepped forward as the chains on the girl's ankles unlocked. She fell forward, weak from hunger, but caught herself. She looked up at the human and shouted, I'm not your pet slave. The human did not speak. He took off his dark jacket and put it around her shoulders. It was warm and it smelled clean. Like metal and soap, the girl was confused. She thought he would grab her, hit her, or drag her away like others did. But he simply turned and began walking away. The guards pushed her forward. She had no choice but to follow. The jacket was heavy on her shoulders, but it was the first warm thing she had felt in months. She felt tears in her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. She would not cry in front of them. They walked through dirty streets filled with aliens, staring at them. Some whispered, some laughed, some looked away. The human did not care. He kept walking, not looking back to check if she was following, but somehow she felt he knew she was there. They reached a small ship hidden behind old crates. It was a simple freighter, scratched and dented, but it looked alive like it had seen many stars. The human opened the door, and warm air came out. She hesitated. This was the moment she could run. She could escape. But where would she go? Back to the streets? Back to the cages? The human turned and looked at her. Come in, you need food. She shook her head. I'm not your pet, the human sighed softly. I know. His voice was calm, not angry. She felt something strange in her chest, something she did not like. Hope. She stepped inside the ship ready to fight, ready to run, ready to scream. But inside, there was no cage. No chains. Just a small clean room with a soft blanket on a seat and a bowl of warm food. She stared at the food. It smelled so good, and she felt her stomach twist with hunger. But she would not eat. She would not give in. She turned her face away. The human placed the bowl on a small table and sat across from her. He did not speak. He did not force her. He took out a small tool and started fixing a broken piece of metal, ignoring her. Minutes passed. Her hunger grew stronger. The smell was too much. She crawled forward, shaking, and took the bowl. She started to eat, tears falling down her face as she did. The human looked at her, his eyes soft, but he said nothing. She finished the food and pushed the bowl away. I will not be your pet. She whispered again, her voice shaking. The human looked at her, then looked back at the piece of metal he was fixing. Good, he said quietly. She sat there, confused, scared, but for the first time in a long time, she felt warm. And deep inside, she wondered, who is this human, and why did he save me? She woke up to silence. No chains on her ankles. No metal bars in front of her face. No shouting aliens. No auction master laughing. Just silence. She opened her eyes and saw a small room. The walls were gray, but they were clean. There was a small bed under her. A soft blanket wrapped around her. It was the same blanket the human had placed on the seat last night. She sat up fast, her golden eyes wide. She touched her neck, her wrists, her ankles. No collars, no cuffs, no tracking tags. She was free, but she wasn't free. She was still in a stranger's ship, owned by a human who had bought her. She told herself, I will run as soon as he opens the door. She looked around. A small light above her head hummed softly. On a table was the empty bowl from last night, clean now. There was a window, but it was covered, letting no stars in. She felt trapped, but it was different from the cages. The air here smelled clean, not like blood and fear. Then, the door opened with a soft hiss. She jumped back, pressing herself against the wall. Her claws came out, ready to fight. The human stood in the doorway, holding a metal cup with steam rising from it. His eyes met hers, calm and quiet, like a lake that did not move. Tea, he said, showing her the cup. She hissed at him, baring her teeth. I will not be your pet. The human sighed, placing the cup on the table. I know. He didn't try to touch her. He didn't try to chain her. He didn't even block the door. He simply sat down on the floor near the table, pulling out a small metal device and a tool. He began to work, ignoring her, as if she wasn't there. She was confused. Why wasn't he locking her up? Why wasn't he watching her every move? Minutes passed. The steam from the tea made the room smell warm, like herbs and something sweet. Her stomach growled. She turned her face away, angry at her body for betraying her. She looked at him again. He was fixing something, wires and tiny parts. In his hands. His hands were rough, with small scars, but they moved gently, carefully. He didn't look like the other buyers at the auction. He didn't look like a monster. Run, she told herself. Her eyes went to the open door. She could slip past him, escape. The ship, run into the streets, hide. But where would she go? The last time she escaped, they caught her and sold her again. The human looked up suddenly, catching her staring. She froze. You can leave, he said softly. I won't stop you, she blinked. Her claws disappeared slowly. You won't chain me? He shook his head. No, why? He looked back at the device in his hands, fixing a small wire. Because you're not a pet. You're not a slave. You're just you. No one had ever said that to her. Not even her own people. Long before the raids and the cages, she felt something heavy in her chest, something warm and scary. Hope was dangerous. Hope was a lie. She hissed again. You lie. You bought me. He nodded slowly. Yes, to get you out of there. I won't hurt you. She didn't believe him. She couldn't. She moved to the door, testing him, waiting for him to grab her, hit her, lock her up. But he did nothing. He kept working on the device, humming softly to himself. She stepped out into the small corridor of the ship. Lights glowed softly on the floor. The ship felt alive, like it was breathing quietly. She saw another door open, showing a window with stars outside. She pressed her hand against the glass, seeing the stars blink in the black. She had not seen the stars for so long. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them away quickly. The human's voice came from behind her. What's your name? She didn't answer. He waited, but she stayed silent, her eyes on the stars. Finally he said, My name is Aaron. She didn't care. She didn't need to know his name, but inside, something whispered, Aaron. She turned back to him. I'm not your pet. He looked at her, his eyes soft but serious. I know. She stood there, unsure, scared, but for the first time, she didn't feel like she was in a cage. She didn't feel like she was property. She didn't trust him. But for now, she didn't run. She would watch him. She would wait, and she would see if this human Aaron was different from the monster she had known. She did not sleep easily on the human ship. Every sound made her ears switch. Every creak of metal made her heart race. Every hum of the engines felt like chains rattling in the dark. She stayed in the small room the human had given her, curled under the blanket, her eyes wide in the darkness. She did not trust him, even if he had not chained her. Even if he had not touched her. Humans lie, she told herself. They all lie. But when she closed her eyes, the memories came back. The auction master's laughter, the cold metal floor, the smell of fear, the screaming of others when they were dragged away. She gasped, sitting up in the dark. Her chest felt tight, like claws were inside her, scratching, tearing. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. No, no. She whispered, clutching her head. She saw the fat alien pulling her forward again, shouting, "Who will buy this one?" She saw claws grabbing her arms, pulling her down, cold metal pressing against her skin. No! She screamed, her voice breaking. The door burst open, and light filled the room. She hissed, falling back against the wall, eyes wild. Claws ready. It was him. Aaron. He stood there, breathing hard, eyes scanning the room, looking for danger. But there was no danger. Only her, shaking and crying. He did not step closer. He did not touch her. Are you hurt? He asked softly. She shook her head, tears falling, her chest heaving. Go away. He didn't go away. He sat down right there on the floor near the door, crossing his legs, resting his arms on his knees. His eyes stayed on her, calm, patient. I'm not here to hurt you, he said. She covered her ears, shaking her head. Layer, he nodded once, accepting her anger. Okay. She rocked back and forth, gasping, claws digging into her own arms, trying to stop the shaking. The room felt too small. The air felt too heavy. Breathe, he said softly. She looked at him, eyes burning. Shut up. He nodded again. Okay, but he stayed. Minutes passed. The nightmare was still there, but it started to fade like smoke in the air. Her breathing slowed, but she was still shaking. Her body felt cold, even under the blanket. She looked at him again. He was sitting there quietly, watching her, not moving, not demanding anything. Why, are you here? She whispered. His eyes softened. Because you were screaming. She hugged her knees, pressing her forehead against them. I'm not your pet. I know. They sat in silence, the hum of the ship around them like a quiet heartbeat. She felt so tired. Tired of running. Tired of fighting. Tired of being. Scared. If he tries to touch me, I will scratch his eyes out, she told herself. She moved slowly, testing him, crawling forward on the bed, then slipping down to the floor. He didn't move. She crawled closer, shaking, her golden eyes locked on his. He did not reach out. He did not smile. She stopped in front of him, trembling. Then slowly, carefully, she curled up in a small ball, pressing her head against his knee. She closed her eyes, waiting for pain, waiting for the chains, waiting for the shouting. Nothing came. She felt his hand hover above her head, then pull back, respecting her space. But she felt his warmth, steady and real, like a small sun in the cold. It's okay, he whispered. She did not believe him. She did not trust him, but in that moment, curled up against him, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Safe. She fell asleep like that. Her breathing slow, her claws hidden, her body finally resting. She woke up later, her head still, resting on his lap. He had fallen asleep sitting up, his back against the wall, his hand near her, but not touching her. She lifted her head, looking at his sleeping face. There were lines on his forehead, small scars on his jaw, a tiredness in his eyes even while he slept. She moved away quickly, going back to the bed, pulling the blanket around herself. She watched him as he woke up, blinking, looking at her with the same calm eyes. "Sleep okay?" he asked. She did not answer. She just pulled the blanket tighter around herself. He stood up, stretching, and moved toward the door. Before he left, he looked back at her. "You're not my pet," he said softly. "You're not a slave. You're free." She turned her face away, pressing her lips together to stop the tears. Free? She thought. What does that even mean? But deep inside, in a place she did not let herself feel, she wanted to believe him. She was not used to waking up without fear. But on the human ship, each morning felt strange, quiet, safe, confusing. She would open her golden eyes, ready for shouting or chains, but there was only silence and the soft hum of the engines. She would listen for the sound of footsteps, ready to run, ready to fight, but there was only the soft clinking of tools in the next room. Aaron was always there, fixing something, cooking something, talking softly to himself. He did not lock her door. He did not tell her what to do. He only looked at her with calm eyes when she came out of her room. She did not understand him. One morning, she woke up hungry. She tried to ignore it, but her stomach growled loudly. She crept out of her room, bare feet quiet on the metal floor. She found him in the small kitchen area, stirring something in a pot. The smell was warm, sweet, and soft, like nothing she had ever smelled before. He looked up, his tired eyes brightening just a little. "Morning," she hissed softly, crossing her arms. "Don't talk to me." He smiled, turning back to the pot. "Okay." She stood there, unsure, watching him pour the warm food into a bowl. He placed it on the table, stepping back. "Eat if you want," he said, moving to the corner to check a small glowing device. She looked at the bowl, suspicious. She sniffed it, ready to throw it if it was poisoned. It smelled good. She dipped a finger in, licking it quickly, sweet, soft, warm. Her eyes widened. She grabbed the bowl and started to eat fast, like an animal. She did not care if he was watching. She was hungry. She needed it. Aaron glanced at her, but said nothing. When she finished, she dropped the bowl on the table, panting, her face flushed. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "What was that?" He smiled softly. "Porridge. With a little chocolate." She frowned. "Chocolate?" He reached into a small container and pulled out a small piece, holding it out. She hissed, stepping back. "Don't come close." He nodded, placing it on the table and stepping away. She stared at it for a long time before snatching it up, sniffing it, then biting it carefully. The taste exploded in her mouth, sweet, rich, warm. She froze, eyes wide, as the taste took over her senses. A small sound escaped her lips. A soft, surprised giggle. She quickly covered her mouth, her eyes narrowing. She glared at him. "What did you do to me?" He chuckled, shaking his head. "Nothing. That's just chocolate." She turned her face away, hiding the small smile that tried to escape. Later, he showed her the window in the ship's main room. Outside, the stars blinked in endless black. She pressed her hand against the glass, her golden eyes reflecting the light of the stars. "I used to watch the stars when I was little," she whispered before she could stop herself. Aaron sat near the controls, looking at her. "Do you miss your home?" She flinched, pulling her hand away. "I don't have a home," he nodded slowly. "You will one day." She turned to him, anger rising. "Don't say things you can't promise." He met her glare calmly. "Okay." The next day, he was fixing a small music device, carefully soldering wires. It was old and broken, but he treated it like it was precious. She watched him from the doorway, arms crossed. "Why do you fix broken things?" He glanced at her, small smile on his lips. "Because sometimes broken things deserve another chance." She looked down, her claws flexing. Another chance? No one had ever given her another chance. She walked over, slowly, sitting across from him. Can you teach me? He looked surprised but nodded, sliding a small tool toward her. Here, hold this. She took it, her hands shaking. He showed her how to press the wire down, how to connect it carefully. She bit her lip, focusing, trying not to mess up. When the device clicked and the small lights turned on, she gasped, her eyes wide. Music, soft and clear, filled the small room. It was a simple melody, warm and gentle, like rain. She felt something rise in her chest, something bright. She looked at Aaron, her eyes shining, and for the first time she let herself smile. But as she smiled, a small red light started blinking on Aaron's console. A warning. His eyes darkened, and he stood quickly, moving to check the screen. What is it? She asked, fear creeping back into her voice. He looked back at her, trying to hide the worry in his eyes. Nothing you need to worry about. But she saw the way his jaw tightened. She saw the way his hands moved faster. Outside, the stars kept blinking, cold and endless. Inside, for a moment, she had learned how to smile, but in the dark of space, danger was coming. The blinking red light did not stop. Aaron tried to hide it, but she saw him checking the screens again and again, his jaw tight, his eyes serious. He would look at her and smile, but it was a tired, worried smile. At night, she lay under her blanket, staring at the ceiling, her golden eyes glowing in the dark. What is he hiding? She wondered. The next day, she found him packing small bags with food, tools, and strange metal pieces. Are we leaving? She asked, hugging herself. He paused, looking at her with those calm eyes. Maybe. Why? Her voice shook, claws pressing against her arms. He placed a hand on the bag inside. Some people want you back. Her heart stopped. She remembered the auction block, the chains, the cold metal floor, the shouting. She saw the fat alien laughing as he pulled her forward, yelling about prices. No, she screamed, stepping back. I will not go back. I will not be a slave again. Aaron stood, raising his hands calmly. You won't. How can you promise that? Her voice cracked, tears filling her eyes. They always take me back, always. Aaron's eyes softened, but his voice was steady. Because this time, they will have to go through me. That night, the alarm blared. Red lights flashed in the small ship, and a loud, cold voice echoed. This ship is surrounded. Hand over the stolen property, and you will not be harmed. She froze, her claws out, breathing hard. She looked at Aaron, who was already pulling on his jacket, strapping a small blaster to his side. Stay here, he ordered. No, she yelled, grabbing his arm. Don't leave me. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, she saw fear there too. Not for himself, but for her. Stay hidden. Please, he whispered. She shook her head, tears falling. They will take me. He placed his hand gently on her head for the first time, and she flinched but didn't pull away. They will not, he promised, and then he was gone. She hid behind the door, peeking through the crack. Outside, the ramp was down, and Aaron stood there, facing 3 bounty hunters. One was a tall reptile with dark green scales and sharp teeth. Another was a metal-armed alien, its red eyes glowing. The third was a small, thin creature with many eyes, holding a scanner. That girl is property of the Goro auction house, the reptile hissed. You will give her back. Aaron shook his head calmly. She's not property. The metal-armed alien laughed, a cold, cruel sound. You think you can protect her, human? Aaron drew his blaster, aiming steadily. I know I can. The first shot was loud, lighting up the dark space with blue light. She screamed, covering her mouth, watching. As Aaron moved, fast, precise, shooting at the metal-armed alien. Sparks flew, metal breaking, and the alien screamed in anger. The reptile lunged, claws out, and Aaron dodged, rolling and firing again. The small creature with many eyes slipped around. Trying to sneak into the ship, she saw it, and fear turned into anger. They will take me again. They will chain me again. No. Her eyes glowed, and something deep inside her woke up. She stepped out of the hiding spot, her claws out, her body shaking, but her golden eyes bright. "Stop!" she screamed, and her voice echoed, not just in the air but inside their minds. Small creature froze, dropping its scanner. The reptile turned, eyes wide, its claws shaking. Aaron paused, looking back at her, his eyes surprised but proud. She stepped forward, her hands glowing faintly, her voice calm but strong. "You will not take me back," she said. "I am not property. I am not a slave." The reptile tried to move, but fell to its knees, holding its head. Growling in pain, the metal-armed alien dropped its weapon, backing away, eyes wide with fear. She felt her power burning, wild and bright, but she controlled it, holding them in place, forcing them to feel her anger, her fear, her strength. "Leave," she ordered. They ran. When they were gone, she fell to her knees gasping, the glow fading from her hands. She felt weak, dizzy, but free. Aaron ran to her, dropping to his knees, pulling her close. She froze for a moment, then slowly, carefully let herself lean into him. "It's okay," he whispered, holding her gently. "It's over," she shook her head, tears falling. "It's never over." He pulled back, looking into her golden eyes. "You're right. But you're not alone anymore." She stared at him, breathing hard, her heart beating fast. For the first time, she believed him. The ship was quiet again, but it was a different quiet. Not the silence of fear, not the silence of cages, but the silence after a storm, when the air feels heavy and the heart beats slow. She sat on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest, her golden eyes staring at her hands. The same hands that had glowed, that had made the bounty hunters run, that had shown her a power she had never dared to use before. She flexed her claws, remembering how the power had burned inside her. It had felt like fire, like light, like freedom, and it had scared her. Aaron moved around the ship quietly, checking wires, repairing panels shot during the fight. She watched him from the corner of her eyes. He did not look at her with fear. He did not look at her like she was a weapon. He only looked at her the same way he always did. Calm, patient, kind. Later, he brought her a cup of warm tea, setting it down beside her without a word. She looked at it, then at him, her eyes sharp. "Aren't you afraid of me now?" Aaron tilted his head, wiping grease from his hands. "No, I could hurt you," she whispered, her claws flexing. "I know. Why don't you chain me?" She hissed, her voice rising. "Everyone else would." He sighed softly, sitting across from her, his eyes meeting hers. "Because you're not meant to be chained." Her chest hurt, like something heavy was pressing down inside. "You're stupid." He smiled a little. "Maybe." She picked up the cup, her hands shaking, taking a sip. The warmth calmed her, even if she did not want it to. "Why did you save me?" she asked, her voice small. Aaron leaned back, looking at the ceiling, thinking. "Because no one should be in a cage. No one should be treated like a thing." "You don't even know me," she whispered. He looked back at her, his eyes soft. "I want to." She set the cup down, hugging her knees tighter, fighting the tears that burned her eyes. "Don't say things you don't mean." "I don't say things I don't mean," he replied gently. That night, she stood at the window, looking at the stars. They were so endless, so cold, so bright. She pressed her hand against the glass, her reflection looking back at her. Golden eyes, blue skin. A girl who had been called property. A girl who had been called pet. A girl who had been sold, chained, beaten, silenced. Who am I, if I am not a slave? The question echoed in her mind, and it scared her more than chains ever did. Aaron stepped up beside her, watching the stars too. You can leave, he said softly. She flinched, looking at him sharply. What? You can leave, he repeated, his voice calm. If you want to go, I won't stop you. I won't follow you. You're free to choose. She stared at him, anger rising. Is this a trick? Are you testing me? No, he replied. You deserve to choose, for once. Tears filled her eyes, falling before she could stop them. She turned away, wiping them with her arm, her shoulders shaking. Why are you doing this? She sobbed. Why do you care? Aaron's eyes softened. But he did not touch her. Because I was alone once too. Silence filled the room, heavy but warm. She stood there, shaking, looking at the door of the ship, then at the stars, then back at him. Freedom was terrifying. Freedom meant she had to decide. Freedom meant she had to trust. She took a deep breath, her claws retracting, her tears drying on her cheeks, and she made her choice. I don't want to leave, she whispered, her voice breaking. Aaron's eyes widened slightly, then he nodded once, a small smile on his lips. Okay. I don't know what to do, she admitted, clutching her arms. I don't know how to be free. We'll learn together, he said softly. She looked at him, really looked, seeing the lines on his face, the tiredness in his eyes, the softness in his smile. She stepped closer, just a little, her golden eyes meeting his. I'm not your pet, she said. I know, he replied. I'm not a slave. I know. She took another small step, close enough to feel his warmth. Then what am I? She asked, her voice a whisper. Aaron smiled softly, looking out at the stars. You're you. She looked out at the stars too, blinking away her tears. For the first time, they did not look cold. They looked like a path, and she was ready to walk it. The stars were not cold anymore. They were calling. She woke up early, before the ship's lights turned on, sitting on the small bed Aaron had given her. She looked at her hands, turning them slowly, remembering the glow, the power, the fear. She was not a slave, she was not a pet, but she was still afraid. Aaron was already awake, checking the ship's controls, humming softly to himself. He looked tired but peaceful, like someone who had learned how to live with the weight on his shoulders. She watched him quietly. Are we leaving? She asked. He looked back at her and smiled. Yes, there's nothing left for us here. Where will we go? She whispered. He shrugged, looking out the window at the stars. Anywhere, everywhere. She walked to the window, pressing her hand against the glass, feeling the hum of the engines under her feet. Are they going to come back for me? She asked, her voice shaking. Aaron was quiet for a moment. Then he answered softly, maybe. She looked at him, fear in her golden eyes. But if they do, he continued, meeting her gaze calmly, they will find out you are not easy to take anymore. She remembered standing in front of the bounty hunters, power burning in her veins, making them run. She remembered Aaron standing in front of her, taking blaster fire to protect her, refusing to give her up. She was not powerless anymore. Later, as the ship prepared to leave orbit, Aaron handed her a small wrapped package. What is this? She asked suspiciously. He chuckled. Open it. She tore the soft cloth away and gasped. Inside was a small metal bracelet with a single glowing blue stone in the center. I don't need a collar, she hissed, stepping back. Aaron raised his hands quickly. It's not a collar, it's a shield band. If you wear it, it will protect you if you're in danger. It's yours. She looked at the band, then at him, then back at the band. Slowly, she took it, holding it gently. It's mine? She whispered. Yes, he said. Yours. She slipped it onto her wrist, feeling its soft hum against her skin. For the first time, something around her wrist wasn't heavy. It wasn't a chain. It was hers, when the engines roared to life. She stood beside Aaron at the front window, watching the ground fall away as the stars grew larger around them. "Are you ready?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Yes." "Do you want to know where we're going first?" he asked. She shook her head, a small smile on her lips. "No." They left the planet behind, flying into the endless dark, the stars like diamonds in black water. She'd spent so long in cages, so long in fear, so long hiding herself. Now, she felt the warmth of freedom wrapping around her like a soft blanket. At night, she could not sleep. She stepped out of her small room, finding Aaron working quietly on a control panel. "Can I sit with you?" she asked softly. He looked at her, nodding, smiling. "Of course." She sat beside him, pulling her knees up to her chest, resting her chin on them. They sat in silence for a long time, listening to the hum of the ship. "Why did you save me?" she asked again, her voice quiet. Aaron took a deep breath, looking out at the stars. "Because I was alone once too," he said softly. "And I promised myself that if I ever had the chance, I would help someone else who needed it." She was quiet, thinking about his words. She looked at her hands again, the bracelet glowing softly. "I'm not your pet," she said, her voice stronger. Aaron smiled, shaking his head. "No, you're not." "I'm not a slave," she said. "No, you're not." She looked at him, her golden eyes bright. "Then what am I?" He paused, then spoke with warmth in his voice. "You're free." She looked out the window at the stars, taking a deep breath. She was free. And for the first time, she believed it. She leaned her head against Aaron's arm, just for a moment, feeling safe. "I'm me," she whispered. "Yes," he replied, his voice calm. "You're you." The stars outside were endless, bright, and full of hope. And for the first time, she did not feel small under them. She felt alive. She felt strong. She was no longer a pet. She was no longer a slave. She was herself. And with Aaron by her side, she was ready to see every star in the sky.